Hi, you guys. Welcome back to the Sing Confidently Live Creatively podcast. Estelle here. Okay, here we go. I'm going to introduce our interviewee again. Usually I don't do these introductions at the beginning of the episodes, but here we go. We're getting into it. I'm so excited to introduce Amie McNee. She's going to help you start singing and know why your voice matters, why your art matters, why your performing matters, and why you should start doing it literally yesterday, right? She's going to really give you that empowerment that you need. Share her story. She's an author herself, full-time author, a creativity coach, and creator of the Inspired to Write platform on Instagram and on YouTube. And she just shares every single day inspiration with creative love notes where she inspires artists. So you'll absolutely want to connect with her and the book that she has coming out next week. You'll definitely want to pre-order it. It's called We Need Your Art. And it is just, it's too good. Okay. And this episode, she's going to really speak directly to you, my friend, to help you realize why your art matters, why your voice matters. It's important for you to do this work, even if you feel like you don't have time, even if you feel like it's too much, you can do this and you are able to start, and you can start today. And yeah, you're really going to just enjoy our conversation. I really believe that. And make sure you let me know and let Amie know what you think of it. Screenshot it, share it with a friend, repost it on your story so that we can repost it on our stories and share it with the world so that everyone knows how important it is that we start using our voices and singing and performing and creating art. So, yeah, I'm excited to get into this. And real quick, I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you, my singers, because this week we are going to be doing a how to sing series. And, this is a perfect episode to start off with because Amie really talks to the fact that you can start to sing. We need your art, and you are like, you need to change your mindset maybe about why you aren't singing, you aren't doing the work that you really want to be doing, and singing more. And so, sometimes we just have to look at our excuses, look at our reasonings, look them square in the face, and decide something else. And that's what we're going to be doing through this series. I'm going to be pointing out different reasons, why we may not be singing and how to combat those things, how to actually start singing if you are not doing that right now and you really want to be. And I know that you do if you're listening. So get ready for the series. It's going to be so much fun. And you're going to make sure that you tune in every day, subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out this week as we go through this How to Sing series. And I really invite you guys to come and check out the creativelybyestelle.com/studio if you would like to go ahead and have a one-on-one voice lesson with me where we actually break down some of these things that we're talking about this week, that might be getting in the way of you starting to sing. We're going to break that down in the voice lesson and actually get you a practice plan so that you can make time to start singing today, and get you a song to start with so that you know what you're doing every time that you start singing, every time that you go to practice your songs. So that's what happens in a lesson with me. And right now I'm in the process of refining the Sing Confidently course. So we're going to be doing some Sing Confidently coaching and these private voice lessons. So you can go to creativelybyestelle.com/studio to check that out and book a lesson with me. But stay tuned for the series so that we can dig into why you're not singing and how you can start singing today and keep growing in your confidence as a singer. Okay. Alrighty, it's time to get into our conversation with the one and only Amie McNee. Here we go. I'm so excited to talk to you. So excited to talk to you today. You have no idea how your it started for me from your images, like your paintings on Instagram, of course, with your like inspiration and motivation for artists. But then from there, it was like I binged your podcast, you and James's podcast, the Unpublished podcast. You guys should all go listen. And then your YouTube channel. And I just cannot tell you how impactful your work has been to me as someone who like decided to pursue the performing arts professionally, to know that like there's someone out there who's like, this is possible. So
Mm.
thank you so much for your work. Really, really, really thank you.
Estelle, I cannot tell you how much that delights me. I'm so joyful to be here. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you and to have this conversation with singers, with performing artists. Like
Yeah.
what you do is so important and so needed. And I can't wait to just basically remind you of that and to remind you of how beautiful what you do is and how needed it is and how possible it is to take up space in the way you are. So just very, very privileged to be here and very excited to dive in.
Yes, me too. And of course, you have your book, We Need Your Art, coming out very soon. It's in like less than, is it a month? March, right?
It's less than a month.
Less
It's
than a month.
the
Oh my
11th of
goodness.
March.
Okay, perfect. So you have your book coming out. Definitely this episode will be out before, like probably right before then. So you
Mm.
guys run. We'll talk about it in a second, but that book is where you really do get to, like, I think there was a review that said like a creative manifesto or something like that. Or is that how you
Mm.
describe it?
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think that's what we've decided to call it, like a creative
Yeah.
manifesto. It feels like a compendium of all the thoughts I've been having over these 10 years of trying to take
Yeah.
myself seriously as an artist. I got to put them in this like little artist Bible of just like here is everything that I've learned, here is everything I'm still learning. Like let's never do this alone because it is a wild, wild journey that we are on, and we deserve a huge amount of support as we do it.
Yes, exactly. And that's what the book is all about. And I can't wait to get into that even more. Before we do that, of course, we have to do a little backstory because not everyone listening might know exactly who you are and your journey. So I'd love to, we always talk about on the show, like this creative path, it's a journey. Like for me, it started from like, I loved the arts growing up, and then I went to medical school, and then I was like, absolutely not, music school instead. And so there's always a journey. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about your journey. You can, don't feel like you have to like compress it so much, but, just like a little bit about your journey
Yeah,
as
of
an
course.
artist to like, how did you become this person who is writing books, self-publishing books, and also publishing books with, publishing houses, but this writer and author who's doing this full time and now making an impact on other creatives. This is
Mm,
something that so many artistic people could never dream of even touching, right?
mm.
You have done that and you're doing that. So what was that journey for you? I would love to know a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously, massive journey and probably a
Yeah.
bigger internal journey than external. Like, I obviously had to take a lot of action. I had to pivot a lot, but the internal work that I had to do to get to this place has been so big. But I'll start more with like just a little bit of my story. And it's not an unusual story. It's not particularly exciting. I'm sure just like you, Estelle, I thought that I had to be a certain way in this world because we're told a story that, to be a responsible adult, you're going to have to do responsible adult things, get regular adult jobs. And I was so heartbroken by that fact. And I felt ashamed that I wasn't enjoying like work. Like I wanted to be creating. I've come out of uni, been like, all right, it's time to grow up, Amie. Like, let's go see what the world's got to offer. Put aside your childish antics of storytelling and acting and writing. Like, it's time to get real. And I just couldn't tolerate it. And I didn't realize that I was not the only one. For me, at that time, I was like, something's wrong with me. Like, why can't I just go be happy in the marketing firm job? Why can't I just be happy as I was in finance for a second? I did all these different jobs and I kept saying, I just can't believe that my whole life has to be doing this labor that I do not enjoy. When all I know, what I want to be doing is I want to be a storyteller. For a long time I acted, but I was really drawn to the word and I wanted to start like actually telling stories with words. Whereas that in novels or screenplays, like I just wanted to start telling stories. But that was not a viable option according to the culture. And I was told again and again, no, that's not what happens. That's only for the very few. It's a financial like dead end. It's not responsible. It's silly. And I really took all of this stuff on as we must, like as all of us do, because it's everywhere. Um, and so as I navigated this, I've had this kind of like there was a duality in me. And half of me was saying, I cannot live a life with creativity not at the center. Like I must tell stories and I want to fight for it. And the other half of me was shaming that little
Yeah.
creative part of me. And she was saying, well, you have to. I'm so sorry, but you have to grow up. I'm so sorry. Oh, that's a really nice wish that you have. It's nice that you're a dreamer, but it's time to actually do something that everybody else is doing. And so I had these two parts of myself at war. And it was incredibly difficult to live on a day-to-day life when you have two parts of yourself that are so at odds. And I became very, very depressed. I lost my job and I started looking for more jobs in different industries that I didn't care about. And basically I hit rock bottom. I said, nah, I'm going to give it a go. And so I started pursuing my artistry with all my soul. And I started retelling the stories about what it means to be an artist, what it means to be a human being, what it means to work. And I retold these stories. I took a huge amount of risks. I failed like just an inordinate amount of times. I had some real low points. I was really struggled financially for a bit. And then little miracles started happening. And I think this is a big part of the creative's journey is it is not the big break. It was not one big moment of wow, I can finally tell stories for a living. It was just slowly over time, I accumulated little wins to the point where now I am a very, very joyful full-time author who tells stories with her life.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. There are so many points in this in your story so far because your story continues. But there are so many points that I like relate to so deeply. And I know that I'm not the only one because that conflicting the conflicting feeling of like I really want to do this thing, like I really want to start singing, I really want to start writing, I really want to do something creative, like, and not just like on the side. Like for me it was like okay, like I could still do this on the side. Like I was still doing, like I was still singing as I was like applying to med school. I think I was even taking dance classes, I was applying to med school and all that stuff. Like I was still doing all the things, but like it was on the side. It was like me mentally and emotionally also pushing it to the side.
Mm.
And there was this conflicting shame, like you're saying. Go ahead.
Oh my God, I just love this. I love it so much. I'm writing
Yeah.
it down. I hope you don't mind, Estelle. But like,
Yeah.
there was so much shame around
Yes.
wanting to do it full time, and everyone was like, "Just
Mhm.
do it on the side." Oh my God, there's so
Yes.
much shame wanting to do it full time. I was like, "No,
Oh my
I don't want
goodness.
it to. I don't want it to be sidelined in my life. I want
Yes.
it to be everything in my life." And I think people were like, "Oh, well, just take what you can get, Amie. Like, why do you have to ask for so much?" And it's like, I just want a life that I just want a life that I love. I just want a life that I love. I want a
Yes.
life that is filled with stories and filled with me creating.
Yes.
I want to spend each day like, using this creative power that I know I have. But people were regularly like, well, just have it, do it after work.
Ugh,
Just do it. And I
literally.
could not tolerate it. And I want anyone who's listening who has that desire for creativity to really properly like consume your days. I see you, and that is possible, and I validate it, and you're not asking for too much. In
Mm,
fact, I think it's an incredibly beautiful and generous thing to pursue.
yes. So true. Thank you for that. There are like and there are like practical, like tactical things that we'll get into in a second, but what you also said was about like how it was a lot of internal work, and that is actually everything. Like that is actually it, because and that's why this show is called Sing Confidently, Live Creatively, because it's that confidence piece. It's that knowing that this is what I'm meant to do and this is what I actually can do and it is possible. And in order for me to become a confident singer, artist, performer, creative, I have to take action steps, like courageous action steps. And but it starts from like the heart. It starts internally. That is such an important aspect. The biggest thing that I've heard from singers, and I work with singers like in my private studio and also like in multiple like different studios in North Carolina, where I live, by the way, in the US. And I work with like kids, like different ages, right? And the like through line through it always goes back to confidence. It always goes back to what you believe about yourself, about your voice, like if you're good enough, quote unquote. And it always goes back to that. It's like almost never about the practical, tactical things. It's always the heart and the internal work. So I love that you talked about that, like the battle of like the shame versus like the wanting to do the thing, because that's the internal work that we have to go through.
You speak so wisely, Estelle, and so often I people come to me and say, "How can I do it? How can I go pro?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, you're gonna have to do a load of internal work." They're like, "No,
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about that. I want the steps to take in which to get there." I'm like, "I can tell you all the steps, but they're not going to get you anywhere if you are working with an internal voice that is embarrassed or ashamed or guilty or deeply afraid. Like, it doesn't matter what steps you take if you have that internal voice that doesn't believe you're deserving, that thinks you're lazy. Like, these are the things we have to come to terms with. And a lot of people don't want to do that internal work. They just want to cut corners and take action. And
Right.
action's obviously incredibly important,
Mm.
but for me, my life changed and my journey pivoted when I started journaling. And I think that's a good indication of how this wasn't a problem I had with like the external world. This was an internal world problem. And I think a lot of artists think, oh my gosh, it's so hard because of the external world. And it is. We're working with industries that are very, very difficult, that are set up to make us feel. We're working in a culture that doesn't respect the artist. We have systems that are trying to keep us quiet and compliant. There are external problems, but we blame it entirely on the external problems and we refuse to ever look internally at the environment we've created for ourselves. And that's the thing we actually have control over. That's the stuff where we can really make change.
Yeah.
And so for me, I had a violent inner critic. She was so mean, and constantly digging at me. So you're so lazy, you're so stupid. Like, why are you trying to do that? No one can do that. Everyone's telling you you can't do that. Constant. Like,
Mm.
that's all I was telling myself. And I learned to take care of that voice on the pages of my journal. And I also learned to create like a new voice who was so she's so compassionate and she has so much faith that I'm here to make art and to be seen as an artist. And every day, she is, I trust that we're on the right path. This is exactly where you're meant to be. Like, keep taking up space. You are on the path, Amie. She's very reaffirming in that way. And I needed that voice to do the work that I'm doing. And you need an internal voice that is going to take care of you. You need to be on your own side if you're going to do the brave, beautiful work of taking up a space as an artist and a singer.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Thank you. And thank you for sharing about your journaling practice. That was like the next thing to go to because it's like, okay, how do we do this internal work? Um, as artists, as singers, whether you want to do this professionally or not, and I would like to speak to both, but I do know that like a lot of this comes up, especially if you want to do this professionally. Regardless, though, there is that internal work, and it's like, how do I actually do that? And then like I want to get this outcome right now. Like I want to be like doing this right now, but there is like other work that goes before that. So I love that you mentioned journaling. That's like a huge thing for me. My journal is over there. I was like, let me pull out my journal. It's over there. But I love journaling. And that was one of the biggest things I think also where I felt like I was able to connect with like, oh, this is what God has actually put in my heart to do. Like I actually have this desire and it's not a bad thing. And it's actually like something I can make something of, and journaling, getting that out there was such an important thing for me and actually helped me to take better action, I think, because I was
Mm,
like working through this stuff. And then I'm like, okay, like this is the next action step to take. And now I know that I can do it. So
mm.
thank you for sharing
I,
that.
of course, like so much of what we navigate is unconscious.
Mhm.
Most of us aren't even really understanding the way we are talking to each other. We're making choices and they're unconscious choices. We're just on autopilot.
Yeah.
And journaling for me, it allowed me to become a conscious creator of my life. So
Yes.
I was very consciously and with a huge amount of intent choosing the way I wanted to live my life. And I think a lot of people are just on autopilot for their whole lives, and that's why they don't create. That's why they don't have a lot of internal like work going on because they're just going straight and they've never stopped once to think, hold on, is this the life that I want? Is this how I want to treat myself? Is this the relationship I want to have with myself? Whereas journaling just allows you to see yourself in a way that I haven't found in any other practice.
Yeah.
Um, so I journal every day and I just dictate my internal voice onto the pages and I watch myself. And I think it's a conscious practice of seeing yourself and witnessing yourself. So I do that for a little bit and then at the end I'm I rewrite those narratives. So I start saying things like today, I want you to take up space. I want you to breathe deeply. I want you to notice the little miracles, and it's very intentional. That's like me consciously creating my life. And I do that at the end of the pages. And this practice is so simple, but literally from the day I started journaling, which was April 16th, 2018, my journey has done a 180. I
Mm.
was in debt, unemployed, unpublished, deeply depressed. And today, I sit here as an author. I'm so delighted. Like my mental health is so much better. I have a huge capacity for joy, and I'm a freaking full-time author.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's so true. And do you feel like you were able, like, through that journey of journaling? And then what were some of those action steps that you did take? And do you feel like that was what was helpful for you building confidence in yourself as
Mm,
an artist? Because when I think back to your story of like, okay, you were like, oh, I should be in this job or I should be in this job. And then I know you did face rejection, which we can get into it as well. But what was where was I guess, the confidence building
mm,
in this entire journey? Like, how did so you become aware of these thoughts and you started rewriting narratives, but then how did you know that, like,
yeah.
okay, like this is going to start working, right? And you did talk about like you have that voice of faith, right? That you started to uncover and write that, journaling that out, starting to journaling true things instead of like those doubts and those shameful thoughts, right? And so that's part of it. But then what actually what happened from there that actually helped
Yeah.
you to build and build and build on that to build that confidence
Yeah.
you now have? Yeah.
I mean, you're right, because it would all be very well and good if I had a voice every day that says, no, I trust this is going to work. I'm so
Mm,
proud of you for showing up. But like, if I didn't take any action, then that would just be a voice, a very
mm,
meaningless voice. And
mm.
so that voice, it's stirred me to action. And I
Yeah.
firmly believe that a life of art is a life of action. Like the creative act is like the most vibrant, like activating, like piece of action that we do as humans. It's the creative act. It's huge.
Yeah.
So for me, I had to have this voice to support me, to keep me on track. And then it encouraged me to show up so consistently. I was writing very little amounts every day. And I think that's was for me one of the biggest breakthroughs is that I thought in order to validate the fact that I wanted to do something so audacious as to make art professionally, that I would have to be writing from 9 to 5 every day. But what I realized was is that that was just me trying to please the culture,
Yeah.
please the systems. Again, like I just thought, oh, fuck. I thought if I'm going to be a writer, I at least better be a burnt out, exhausted writer to validate the audaciousness of my decision. And
Yeah.
so I had to move from that and I had to realize that's not the action to take because all that was happening was I was writing like 4,000 words in one day, then ending up needing to take 3 months off because I was so exhausted. And so now I have a consistent practice of art, which means just taking action every day, reminding myself that I'm an author all the time. So I write 500 words a day now. So it takes me like about half an hour to an hour. And that's what I do every morning. And it ingrains this identity that I am author. And it's constantly doing stuff that reminds us of who we are, constantly singing to remind us that we are singers, constantly taking up space to remind us that we deserve to take up space. And so for me, action had to accompany this journaling practice because I had to prove that I was a woman of my word. I would write in the morning, and then the whole day it was me being a woman of my word, which meant I wrote. It meant that I took up space. It meant that I was being rejected because I was putting myself out there. And then eventually it meant choosing myself. And that was a very big part of my journey was I thought that in order to be a legitimate author, I needed to be picked by a publishing house. But I wasn't being picked by a publishing house, Estelle. Like I was receiving hundreds and hundreds of rejection letters.
Mm,
And I realized that I was waiting for someone to tell me I was allowed to do what was my God-given calling. And I
mm,
was waiting to begin my life for permission from someone who's in a suit in an office
yeah.
in a city far away. And I had to get over my ego because I thought that self-publishing meant that I was a failure. And I had to say, no, I am going to be the person that picks me before anybody else picks me. And I think for all artists, especially in the performing arts space, like there's a lot of gatekeeping where you think you're not going to be able to do your craft unless someone tells you you can do it. But the world is changing fast, and we get to pick ourselves before anyone picks us. And it's a powerful act of self-coronation. It allows you to validate yourself before anyone else validates you, and that is incredibly powerful. And it's also, if I do say so myself, a very good business move. Because I would just be waiting and waiting and waiting. But
Yeah.
now I get to take up space and make a business out of my artistry. And I think a lot of people feel very reticent to see artistry as business, but at the end of the day, like I have something that I think people want, and I want them to pay me money for it. And to me, like reframing my writing as a business has allowed me to take up space and make money and live my dreams.
Yes. And I think right here might just be where we split this into two because this is like a whole other aspect that I would love to discuss with you about the business of being an artist that you do so exquisitely. Like you do it so well. And you speak to different artists in a way that is like, even though you speak to a lot of different artists, you're very good at ideating for like different types of artists really well. So I would love for you to do a
Thank
little bit
you.
of that, like for
Yes.
performing artists, because so like the person listening, most of my listeners, they are like very much at the beginning, right? Very much at the
Mm,
beginning of the journey. Really, the mindset piece was like the biggest thing. And I'm so glad that we went in depth there because that is huge. That's huge. Like the biggest, let me tell you real quick, quick fun fact, like the most downloaded episode on my podcast, at least it was. I think it still is one, definitely one of the top 10 is called is it it's like something like is it selfish to want to be an artist, why your creative gifts really matter or something like that, but like selfish is like in all caps, like that's like the beginning of the title, is it selfish to want to be, and that was like and I published that like when I was still like not really growing that much, like the podcast wasn't like growing all that much, and then that one like went out and I was like, why are so many people interested in this topic? I was like, are more people like me? So that mindset piece is just so key, I feel like, and I'm so glad that you did
so key.
that. Yeah, because that is it's
Just
huge.
really quickly, and I
Mhm.
know that I want people to go back and listen to that episode of
Yeah.
yours because I know you're going to speak to that so beautifully. But we've been convinced
Mm.
that art is selfish by a
Yeah.
system who I think is very afraid of artists. And I just want to
Mm.
remind us that we get told a lot of these stories because people are afraid of our power. People are afraid of how impactful we can be when we take up space.
Yeah.
And I want to remind you that when we pursue creativity, we are pursuing generosity. And it is the most generous thing in the world that you can do to pursue your art.
Period. Like I want everyone to go back and listen to that again. It's so true. It's so true. Like I love that you said that. That is what we all need to like let sink into us and breathe it in and know that that's true and remind ourselves of it again and again, that it is generous to make art and it is generous to want to sing and to want to share your voice, want to share your artistry with the world on stage, online. And that is that mindset piece. And I'm so glad that we went into that. And then there's this other piece then that I think that is a little bit further down the road for some people listening, but I think it's something that we still keep in mind because then we're like, okay, where am I going? So if
Mm,
I'm going to want to be a singer, a lot of times I'm like, you guys, we're not going to be like Beyonce tomorrow. Like we got to start somewhere. We got to start small. And of course, it starts with knowing your voice is what I talk about in my course. Like that's the first step, know your voice. And that's all this mindset stuff of like, what do you think about your voice? Who are you as a person? Um, knowing like practically what is the voice like and how does it work and everything like that, and then what are your thoughts about it, and that's that mindset piece, and then from there we do start to take some action steps, and that's like more on like the vocal side of things. But when it comes to performing artists and singers who might want to do this professionally or might want to do this as a side hustle, and they're like, well, do I need to be picked up by a
mm.
like a what's it called, recording
Like
label
a
like
label.
tomorrow, like
Yeah.
yeah, like do I need to be picked up by a label, like what do I do, like if I'm not
Mm.
like if I'm not the best vocally, like singing wise, right? That's one thing. But then like how do I then even make this a career, right? That's a whole other thing, is that business aspect. And you do such a beautiful job of talking to artists about that. What are like like if you could ideate like what, yeah, let's go back to that
Let's
whole
let's
idea of
go, Estelle.
ideating
Let's
for
go.
performing artists. Um
Yeah.
ideate for us a little bit, like what would you say for performers who are wanting to start to see themselves
Mm.
as businesses? What are those
Beautiful.
first few steps that you would recommend if you're a singer?
Mm.
Like how do I start to put myself out there like you talked about practically and see myself
Yeah,
in
great.
business? Yeah.
Yes, love this. Oh my gosh, let's go. Let's go.
I feel like
I
it
have
took
so
me a
much to
long time to
say
get to that question, but we made it.
here.
We made it. So let's go.
I want to first of all, I want to preface this conversation by reminding you again, and I'll just keep reminding you of this. Like, it's an amazing possible and generous thing to pursue your art professionally. You are going to be told a lot that it is unlikely or that it is going to be very hard. Oh, you're going to be working as a barista the rest of your life. Don't listen to those voices. It is very possible to do this professionally. You have a calling and you're telling me that you want to do this full time. I back you. I champion you. Let's go. So for me, one of the real big things that I see in a lot of creatives when they want to take themselves seriously is they want to wait until they're not a beginner to start taking up space, or they want to wait until they have an album finished before they start taking up space. They want to wait until, they've got a certain number of books written before they take up space. And I want to suggest that no matter where you're on in your journey right now, that if you are someone who wants to take up space professionally, it's time to start taking up space now.
Yeah.
Like, do not wait until you are quote unquote ready to start sharing your voice and letting people hear you. You don't need to have a single for people to listen to. You don't need to have something recorded. You don't need to even be writing your own music. Like, let them hear your voice now. Let us fall in love with you, even if you're at the very early stages. You still have something so profound to give right now. And you don't need to wait or get more education or get more experience for you to be witnessed. Like, you are a blessing to be witnessed right now, and you have art to give right now that is a blessing. And I think too many people are waiting and waiting and waiting to take up space. And by taking up space, I'm talking about, sharing your voice, literally sharing your voice on the internet, in real life, however you like to share your voice. Like, it's time, like now. It's time to develop community. When we're
Hmm.
talking about being a business, the word business can really frighten a lot of creatives off, but I'm talking about when I talk about my patrons, the people that pay me for my books, they are a community of people who trust me. And it's time for you to start building a community of people who trust you and want a little bit of your magic. And you are going to have to do that by letting yourself be seen imperfectly, messily on this journey. You cannot make this perfect. Do not make it so that it is every single thing you share is such high standard. Let people see you in your mess. Otherwise, this is going to be the most painful journey of you being a perfectionist about every single little thing you share. You're going to hold yourself back. You're not going to give yourself permission to really be seen. So the biggest thing I think is start now. Let yourself be seen now in all of your mess and imperfection. Start building relationships and trust with other people now, because I'm actually really tired of seeing creatives like 10 years down the line being like, no, I'm still not ready yet to share my gifts. I'm like, you want to do this professionally, you're going to need to be witnessed.
Yeah. It's so true. What do you recommend for like first being witnessed? So for you, I know Instagram was a big driving force for how you started building that community, which I love that you talked about that. That is so true. It's not about like, oh, like I just need like all these people to like, you know, I'm gonna have to get so many people, but it's about like connecting with people and sharing
Yes.
yourself. I love that. How do we
We're artists.
Mhm.
We're not selling we're not selling a fridge. A
Exactly.
fridge, you need someone to need, like, you're selling your art. That's a relationship that you're going to have with these people. And I think it's very different to talking about like corporate business. Like, we're talking about finding people and moving them emotionally.
Yeah.
And that requires us to show up vulnerably. So I'm so sorry,
That's
Estelle, I
so true.
interrupted you.
No, you're good. That's so true. And I think it's the challenge that some people will say is that, okay, like, and I've talked to other people about like, okay, showing up on social media, is that like the only way to start putting yourself out there as a performer? And like you said, that's not the only way. You can start locally. You can go to open mic nights. You could sing at, you could ask to sing at nursing homes and libraries and all these different ways to put yourself out there. Which I'm currently like literally in the journey of doing all of those
Are
things.
you?
Um,
Can I
yeah. And
ask you about
sometimes,
that?
yeah, sure. And
I'm
sometimes
super
not.
interested in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think so many of us, like, I am talking also about putting yourself out there online, but that's
Yeah.
a lot of what we hear about, right? Is
Mhm.
like, oh, what platform should I be on? Oh, it's so embarrassing to sing to zero followers. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's true. It's so important, but it's true. But so few of us now, I think because we're not used to actually going out in the real world and putting ourselves out there in the real world, like, not a lot of us are doing this. And it's almost
Mhm.
like this untapped space that's like maybe a little bit more fertile than the
Mhm.
internet. It's like who's actually going out there and like really trying to sing in live spaces right now? And how are you finding putting yourself out there, like not
Yeah.
online?
Yeah. So I still do put myself out there online, like, clips here and there and like audition videos and stuff. But when it comes to like trying to, so for me, I've moved to like a different area in North Carolina. I got married 5 months ago, and so like we moved to a different area in North Carolina, and now there's this whole theater and music scene here that I'm like trying to really be
Yeah.
intentional about getting involved with, and also because I'm teaching music in these areas, like other people in the studio, like they're also involved in like so it's about like asking questions honestly of like, hey, like how do you like what are some places that you go to sing, or like what are places that you're
Amazing.
auditioning in? And that's like the biggest piece of advice that I've gotten is like just try to get like as connected to as many people as you can in music and theater. Like joining Facebook
Mm,
groups has been a big thing. That's where I find like a lot of auditions in Facebook groups as well as like online platforms and stuff. But Facebook
mm.
groups, like local Facebook groups, there are a lot of
Yes, I love that.
that will tell you like, oh, open mic nights, auditions, like these places are like looking for art, like wedding band singers and all that stuff. So I'm still starting. Like right now, my goal is like to do some sort of live performance every month, like once a month.
Amazing.
And I
Great
just did
goal.
one. Yes, thank you. I just did one for February. So that's yay. It was like a
Yes.
history month showcase. So I was like, yeah, I got that off, check that
Well
off.
done.
So I feel like that is what it is like trying to find people like and
Yes.
find people to connect with. Facebook groups are helpful for that, but also just like anywhere that the arts are happening, like going
Yeah, I love
is a
that. Go
great
there.
idea. Yeah. And then also just like emailing, like, and I have gotten a lot of like crickets, but like I still
Of
am
course.
like emailing like coffee shops and art centers,
Proud of
like, are
you.
you guys looking for like, nursing homes? I emailed like a bunch over the
Mm.
Christmas break, you guys. I didn't get any response for like holiday music. I think it was a little bit late in the game.
Yeah.
Again next time. But like
I just love that. And I love the vulnerability. And like, this
yeah.
is such a beautiful example of what we are speaking about. Like, this is the vulnerability that is required. It is the
Hmm.
constant exposure of yourself. And it is
Yeah.
rough, like
Yeah.
you will
There are
receive a
empty
lot of
inboxes.
silence.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
That
I
happens.
navigated so much silence. And I think we all need to have these conversations because we will receive silence and all of
Mhm.
us will navigate the silence. And many of us, including me, will navigate silence for years and years. And that's why we have to be in love with the process, right? Because
Yeah.
it's borderline traumatic, I think, for artists to constantly be putting art out there and receiving nothing in return.
Yeah.
But this is a big part of our job as we build up um, our presence. And I love that you're in community. And I think I'm happy and I really love talking about finding community online. But I am interested in actually finding community in your actual community.
Yeah.
Like we're
I'm
living in
working
real
on it.
spaces.
I'm working on it. Like I'm taking little baby steps. That's something that I
That's
actually
the
still
only
feel
way
like,
you can do it,
yeah,
baby.
I still feel like I'm like lacking, but I'm trying. So I really appreciate that affirmation that yeah, it's something that
You're
we
doing the
need
work.
to
You're
do.
doing the work.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thank you. That was encouraging to me, but I hope this is encouraging to everyone else too, that like we can take action, in person as well as online.
Mm,
And even if you do want to take it like online, I feel like that's also a place where you can kind of have a little bit more autonomy of like, well,
totally.
until I hear back from these people, I can't control whether they respond to me, but I can,
Just
create
keep
an
showing up.
Instagram profile and YouTube. Yeah. And I can show up here on my podcast. Like I can show up somewhere and my voice will be heard in some way and my art will be shared. Feel
I
like,
think one of my big,
mhm.
sorry,
Yeah,
I just I was just gonna say, I think one of my big mantras at the moment is just keep showing up, being incredible, and just
Mm,
wait for people to notice. So that's like that's my strategy right now. It's like show up a lot and I'll be incredible because, obviously, like I'm going to show up, I'm going to be incredible, and then don't keep pushing it, just like I'll trust. So it's
mm,
like that relentless commitment to taking up space. But I think a lot of us get exhausted when we're like pushing and we're like begging, and it can feel like this, like you're at war with the world, like to pay attention to me. And so for
Yeah.
me, because I can really get into that space where, because I'm so ambitious and I'm so let's go, and I can be really like, oh, come on, what's going on? Why is it not working? So I've tried to sit back into this. I relentlessly show up as my fabulous self, and then I sit back and I watch magic happen. And sometimes the magic happens slowly, but magic does eventually occur.
That
But,
was exactly what I needed to hear.
and that's exactly what
Guys,
you're doing.
that's exactly what I needed to hear. I don't think you guys understand. Thank you for that. Thank you. And I know that I'm not the only one because it can feel like I'm doing so much. Like, okay, I am taking action steps, but like I'm not seeing this outcome that
Yes, and
I'm
it's
seeing
so
yet.
hard.
Yeah. But
But just trust, Estelle, like you are taking relentless action and you're being incredible. People will notice. It just takes time.
mm,
Um, Patience is a big chapter in We Need Your Art, because patience is one of those
yeah,
lessons that just is absolutely required for us.
yeah.
Um, this this shit takes time, but I'm so proud of you. And yeah, I mean, showing up on the internet, it takes a long time to find your community and build your community. But keep showing up and relentlessly be brilliant and be brilliantly messy as well. I don't want I don't want you to feel like when I say be brilliant, I'm saying be perfect. Don't be perfect. Be messy. Share your mistakes. Share your off keys. Like share the blooper reel, but let your magic like shimmer
Mm,
through.
yeah. Thank you. And you're talking about the chapter and We Need Your Art. And we need to talk about the book just as a whole too, because so the tagline is stop messing around for those in the US. Stop messing around and make something. And I love that you talk about patience, right? Because there is that mindset piece. When you first see the cover, you're like, oh, we need your art, make something. Okay, like we're gonna be taking action.
Yeah.
But there is that internal piece first, right? Which we already hit on. And then there is the making, the idea of making something. What do you think, like, for the book? What do you feel like is the biggest thing that you want artists to take away from, like, after they finish reading the book? Like, if they could do like one, two, three steps after finishing the book, what would you say, like, you would love for them to just do this, like, one thing, or these two things, or these three things, like, right after they read the book?
Oh, big question, Estelle.
And everyone will do something,
The one
of
thing that
course.
I want them to know is
Yes.
that,
Okay.
I say we need your art a lot. That I've put up a like blow by blow, like these are the reasons. Like listen to me. I've really like built an argument, especially in the first part of the book. I want everyone leaving that book to know this isn't just a nice saying. I'm not just being sweet about creativity. I'm saying that when you create, when you sing, when you take up space with your voice, you are actually changing the world, and you are actually making this a much better place to live in. And it can sound like such a like it's just a nicety, or it's just a cute thing to say. I'm not joking around. Like your art, when you sing, you improve this world. And I need artists to know that, because I think we've been told that art is just decoration or a nice to have for so long that that story is very ingrained. We think it's so selfish to pursue our music, to pursue our voice, and it is the opposite. And so I want people, when they're finished reading the book, to really have that. Like they're like, no, I'm convinced. If my grandma comes up to me and asks me why I'm still singing, like I would have an argument. I
Wow.
would have something to tell her. Like
Yeah.
that's what I want people to feel. And then in terms of action, I want people to start taking, I mean, I go hard into how we develop a consistent practice, because I think consistency is I mean, people shy away from that word. They don't want to hear it. But I truly think consistency is the missing piece for so many creatives, because we're constantly dipping in and out so often, and we're giving like big breaks. We're never giving out all. And so I want artists to find a relationship with consistent
Mm.
creativity.
Yeah, that's so good. And I think it is that, like, it's the heart piece and the mindset piece, the internal work that we talked about with the journaling and all of that. But I think it's also that consistent showing up and taking small action steps consistently. That is what actually builds confidence. Like, that's what I
Yes.
discovered for myself as a singer. And like listening to your guys' podcast, unpublished podcast, everyone go listen. Listening to your guys' show has helped me so much over the last like year or so to even be more intentional about like consistent action. Like you always talk about like art first, muggle stuff later, like all like art
Hmm.
first. And I literally am like, I have to like move that around in my plan of like, okay, I'm gonna sing, I'm gonna do my voice, my vocal warm-ups and my voice practice first before I do like anything else. I didn't do it today, but I'm going to like after this. So it's like, I started a little bit late today, you guys, but it's like that whole mindset shift of like, oh, like this is how I actually build confidence as a singer and as an artist is that consistency. So I love that you talk about that. And I love that you
Mm.
want people to come back from this book and know so firmly that their art is needed and that their artistry is important. And then to also know so firmly, like, this is how I
And
grow,
this is how
how
I
I
do
do
it.
it.
It's like
Yeah.
you have to first understand that this is not a joke. Like art, this is not a joke. Your singing is not a joke. This is really, really serious, and there are reasons why we need you to do this. Then, with that knowledge, we can start taking our art seriously.
Hmm.
And it's only with that knowledge can we be like, all right, well, it's time for me to shake up my life and put this as a priority. And I
Yeah.
want you to look at your life, and if someone was to look at the last like week of your life and you were to tell them everything that you've done, at the end, they would be able to go, oh, so you're a singer, you know? Because your life should reflect what it is you are doing
Yeah.
and what it is you prioritize.
That's so good. That is so good and so true. I am so excited to read your book and I'm so excited for everyone to read it. And we'll talk about like where they can find it all and where they can pre-order and support you and everything. I really, really appreciate you taking the time. I know we're like a little over, but I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today. This has been so amazing. It's so fun. And
Estelle,
yeah.
it was truly a privilege. We need your art, we need your voices, and I'm just so grateful that we had to have this chat.
Yeah, me too. I have to ask you the question that I ask all my guests. The last question is always before we get into like where everyone can find you is I just want to like us to both envision like the person listening who is like where we were once and it's that place of okay, I'm hearing this, okay, I need to work on my like the internal work and these internal thoughts that I'm having. And then there are some things that I can do to take action and think of myself as a business. And okay, this is possible. This is possible. And this person is sitting there and they have doubted themselves for a long time. And they have felt like not so confident in their singing voice and in the fact that anyone even needs to hear them sing or anyone even needs to hear them act and perform or do anything creative. And they have struggled with that lack of confidence and they've struggled with that imposter syndrome and that fear and that doubt. But they still really, really, really want to do it. Like they really, really, really want to do it. If you could just say like one last word for them that you just want them to be so grounded in,
Mm.
what would that word of encouragement or motivation be if it was just like you just had one more thing to say for that performing artist?
You are called to create for a reason. This is not some sort of inclination or, oh, I might try this out. You have been called. Like this is beyond like the earthly realm. Like this is a holy calling, in my opinion. Like when we are called to art, like this is an important thing that you need to take seriously. So I know it's really scary. It is scary. It's very, very brave to do what we do. And it's okay to be scared. But please know this is not something to brush off. You have been called to take up space with your voice. This is your path.
Thank you. I loved that. I literally could feel myself like back in med school. Like if I had heard that, like I feel like that was exactly what I needed to hear. And
Yeah,
that is exactly what like a lot of us who are like who have that desire, that wanting to create needed to hear. So thank you. It's so validating.
pleasure. My
Thank you so much.
pleasure. I
That's so
believe it.
beautiful. That's so beautiful. Tell everyone where they can find you and hang out with you and listen to the podcast and pre-order the book.
Yes, so you can come find me on Instagram. It's probably the main space at the moment, which is inspired to write. I also have a Substack, which is just my name, Amie McNee, and a YouTube is Amie McNee as well. You could just Google me and have a little play around with everything that I do. But the big one for me at the moment is this book, baby. We need your art. Pre-orders mean so much to authors. They're so valuable. It's very boring, but essentially all the pre-orders on the first day when it launches, they all count. So they all rack up. So what happens is on the day it launches, if I've got a good amount of pre-orders, it often puts me up in the charts so that other people can see it and other people can buy We Need Your Art. So if you do have the opportunity to pre-order, it is such a blessing to me. But you can find her anywhere you get your books. And yeah, I just want this book to take care of you as you do the very brave thing. And please know, as you read We Need Your Art, that I am championing you like with every part of my heart.
Thank you so much. I can't wait for everyone to pre-order it and I can't wait to read it. It's going to be amazing. Thank you so, so much for your time. I've loved this.
Thank you, Estelle.
Thank you so, so much for listening to today's episode and to this show. I'm so in awe of you for being here and showing up for your creative gifts. That takes courage. Don't forget to join the performing arts community on Facebook for support and inspiration as you continue on your journey. If this episode helped or inspired you in any way, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and share it with someone. It means so, so much. Thank you again, and don't forget to keep singing, acting, dancing, performing, and living creatively. Talk to you next time.